ahora vamos a reaccionar a un videíto, ¿vale? Cortito, de 12 minutitos, de un poquituber inglés, tío, bueno, que seguía hace tiempo, pero que no sabía que hacía... Ay, mierda. Que no sabía que hacía estas cosas. Y hizo... se llama Tuegreen7. Es el carimero de allí, ¿vale? O sea, es una locura este tío. Hizo un vídeo que es convirtiendo a Pokémon legendarios en Pokémon normales, en Pokémon base, en Pokémon básicos. Y vamos a verlo porque tiene muy buena pinta. Creo que convierte a 4 Pokémon. Es Arceus, Dialga, Ternatus, Regigigas y Necrozma, ¿vale? Vamos a ver qué tal.
Start big with the most legendary Pokemon of them all. Arceus.
Tiene muy buena
It's
pinta este
technically
vídeo.
mythical, but who cares? The alpha Pokemon
Bueno, espera, le voy a poner los subtítulos, si no nos enteramos.
is probably the best first example because people already compare it to a normal animal, the llama. Just a llama stuck in a fence, they say.
Bueno, es
We
una
can
llama
go in
tal cual,
different
¿no?
ways, both with the same design, technically. We can give Arceus a mortal form, basically what Arceus looks like when he disguises himself as a humble Pokemon, or we can make an alpaca Pokemon that just so happens to look like Arceus. We can say it's a convergent form. I'm thinking I'll combine this idea. We're gonna make a Pokemon
Claro, porque aparte, Arceus puede ser el Pokémon legendario de los más básicos que hay, porque la forma no es que sea muy de Dios, ¿no? Es al final un cuadrúpedo que tampoco tiene nada destacable, tío, en el diseño. Para ser el dios, ¿no? O sea, tiene un diseño muy básico, podríamos decir. Para ser un dios Pokémon, claro. Para ser el creador.
that was literally made in Arceus' image, but also is a separate species that Arceus sometimes disguises itself as, basically a parallel to the Judeo-Christian idea of humanity and its relationship to God, but also a funny little alpaca. Let's go.
Claro,
Just starting out with the proportions of an alpaca, but with dainty, pointy Arceus hooves. Small details like the tail are the same, even the eye is the same, but with larger cheek circles to look like blush. In actual snap...
Aparte hasta el tipo, es tipo normal, ¿no? O sea, ¿veis bien que sea tipo normal? Claro, porque es como el tipo base, ¿no? Del que nacen todos, podríamos decir.
The biggest change, and flowing hair, or else it would be a literal alpaca. The configuration of Arceus' bangs and sideburns are pretty similar to that of an alpaca's.
Va a quedar
Now
guapo,
it's time to add the fluffy wool, or fibers, whatever it's called. It'll still be a very reminiscent of Arceus' body, just way more puffy and way less muscular. That's pretty much it.
Más hinchado y menos
wheel or
musculoso.
gems. I did add a little dangly ball of fur on the sideburn to look like a Peruvian hat. After adding Arceus' colors, I
Dios,
added more
ojalá saber dibujar así,
animalistic
tío.
ears instead of Arceus' pointy helmet spikes. It's a pretty mystical looking alpaca. I'd say it's an equal to Absol. This is Alpacius.
¡Qué
the
guapa,
mortal
eh!
Pokemon. This Pokemon
Cuidado,
can be found
eh.
in mountain-
Ojo, Fur Coat de habilidad. Parece, bueno, es la habilidad de Furfrou con Fluffy. Alpaceus. Super Look de habilidad oculta. Y tiene 80 en todo. 80 en todo le puso. Y aquí sería la forma Shiny. Pues está guapo, Está guapa, la verdad.
mountainous rural settlements.
Parece como una forma convergente de Furfrou o algo así, ¿no?
Humans use their fiber to make clothes and blankets. Towns that herd alpacas tend to be very prosperous and peaceful. It is said that people who wear alpacas clothes receive
Está
good
gordito.
luck and fortune.
Por eso tiene fur coat.
Alpacas is kind and calm. In battle, they spit at their foes with dangerous pressure. They are able to harness the elements with their spit, throwing flames, shooting water, and even breathing frost. In ancient times, they were worshipped as gods. According to myth, alpacas
¿Cómo le voy a robar estos diseños para shortear? Para shortear. Shorteable. Sí, amigos, sí. 3 Pokémon legendarios que podrían ser Pokémon normales.
This is the
Perfecto.
form Arceus takes when it wants to observe humans closely. This is why Alpacius herders treat them with total respect on the off chance that they are in the presence of the alpha Pokemon. Its abilities
Arceus de
are
Perú.
Fur Coat, Fluffy, and Super Luck, with the same shiny as Arceus. I've been wanting to design such a
Claro,
Pokemon
sería más
for ages,
pequeño.
so it's super cool to see it fully realized.
Dios, pero le quedó muy guapo, Le quedó muy guapo, tú. Arceus de normal y corriente.
And D-Legend, one of the most
Pero vamos con
legendary Pokemon in
Dialga.
existence, Dialga, the ruler of time. So for a lot of these, I want to keep aspects of the original lore, but make them mundane and very much
Convertirlos en
not
criaturas
mythical
mundanas.
creatures. They will have powers that the average Pokemon can access. So something
Yes!
on a less cosmic level would be a Brontosaurus. I mean, it's basically what Pokemon like Dialga have the body shape of. So what if instead of a time god, we have a super old
Qué
Pokemon
guapo,
who can
Leyendas
tell time?
Arceus, Dios.
Something as ancient and rare as a Relicanth. A living dinosaur like Tropius, but mixed with the grandfather clock, a wise old skeleton dinosaur. No, but seriously, I want to give it a grandfather clock element. That's a big part of the concept. I'm starting with the body of a dinosaur, very traditional, simple shapes.
Nuevo
since I don't
dinosaurio. Sí,
want to
sí, va a
make
ser
it
como un
look legendary.
dinosaurio.
I then started adding simplified versions of Dialga's armor, but was afraid it looked too much like a Tropius at this point, so I immediately added Dialga's long head, but that kind of screwed me over since that made it look too much like an actual Dialga now, so that head will get smaller and smaller by the final design. I guess long head
Claro,
equals
es que igual se
legendary.
le parece
The
mucho.
helmet is kind of modeled after an ancient Greek helmet, since the point of this Pokemon is that it's not modern, it's pretty old. There were many times where I wanted to add a beard to make it look like a father time, but the point is to not overcomplicate the face, thus making it look legendary. I added a way shorter version of Dialga's head ornaments in the shape of a clock hand. In fact, I noticed that Dialga's patterns were already in the shape of the hands of a clock. Pretty clever. I'll add those here and there too. Instead of the signature Creation Trio face lines that Dialga has, I added 2 lines above the lips to make it look
Dialga por piecito,
super old. Next is the piece of armor plating that flows down the neck, inspired
lo va a
by the
hacer como un
pendulum in the
dinosaurio
grandfather
mayor,
clock. You know, the thing that swings on the bottom in order for the clock to work. Refining it a bit before giving it a way less developed version of Dialga's feet and the hand-shaped armor on its back. Every detail is basically what
Está quedando
Dialga has,
guapo,
but less fancy. I originally put a diamond on its pendulum and then realized that this is no longer the Diamond Legendary. After giving it Dialga's colors, I was frustrated with how similar it looked to Dialga, so I added lines to the pendulum to make
Claro,
it
es
look
que
like a
parece una
spine,
preevolución,
and
la
decided to
verdad.
lean into the whole skeleton look. I took out the diamond to make it hollow and made it this pale purple. It's full-on ghost type now, with a bone motif. Behold, Centor, the grand Pokemon.
A mí no me convence. ¿No lo veis como una preevolución o como una forma paradoja, como decís ahí? Sí, ¿verdad? Le quedó mucho mejor el de Arceus, ¿eh? Este no le quedó tan bien. Sería Fantasma Dragón, Roje, Telepatía y Sheer Force. Y tendría estas estadísticas. No es malo, o sea, no está mal, pero le quedó mejor Arceus, ¿eh? Le quedó mejor Arceus, tío. Es que claro, no es superar el diseño, es convertirlos en Pokémon normales, en Pokémon básicos, no legendarios, ¿sabéis? Cuando le quito la tela a mi padre.
Century and Roar, a ghost dragon type. Centauroar can exist for centuries. They are able to slow down their metabolism for years in order to
Bueno,
preserve
no
their
está
body.
mal, ¿no?
For
No me voy a
millennia,
quejar
they
porque yo
were
no lo podría
believed to
hacer
be
esto.
halfway dead. They don't respond to most stimuli, but are very punctual. They will eat, sleep, and train at the same time each day. They have perfect internal clocks. In some civilizations, Centauroar were responsible for
Yo sí me
keeping
quejo de
track
malo
of
es.
seasons and
No le quedó muy
holidays.
bien este, ¿no?
In battle, they will let out a ghostly roar
Arceus le
that
quedó
sends chills
increíble,
and
la
freezes
verdad.
opponents.
A ver lo siguiente,
It can
quedan
crush
3.
enemies with one headbutt. It has the abilities Rock Head, Telepathy, and Sheer Force. I thought a similar shiny to Dialga's will work and even fit better on this ghost type. It has access to Roar of Time, by the way. I hope you love the allusions to the power to control time, too.
No tiene una
Perhaps
tubería
it's
en
a
el
descendant
cuello, lo que pasa es que dijo que lo quería agregar diseños como de un reloj de péndulo.
of all legendaries.
No es sorteable.
I can't
A ver
comprehend it, and
Eternatus,
Game Freak
¿eh?
gave us zero backstory to it.
Eternatus creo que es
Why does it
fácil,
look
¿eh?
the way it does? A
Cambiarle un
dragon
poco.
skeleton.
Convertirlo en
What
un
would it
dragón
look like with
chiquito.
skin? That's what fans have been asking for years. Imagine Eternatus was just a normal Pokemon from a parallel dimension, almost identical to ours, but was completely warped upon traveling through a wormhole. I want to make a poison dragon that looks very traditional looking.
¿Os gusta
something
Eternatus
that
a vosotros?
we're familiar with,
El
as a
diseño.
juxtaposition to Eternatus, which
A mí
looks
no mucho, la
completely
verdad,
unlike any Pokemon, and even Ultra Beasts. Keep in mind, this is just one of many potential designs for a non-skeleton.
Lo sorteo
Eternatus.
facilísimo. Sí, sí,
Maybe
sí,
in the
sí.
future I'll make a
Medio
more
millón de visitas.
legendary looking one.
Me la pela.
Well, now I'm planning to make this one look more like a pseudo-legendary, or at least less complicated than what I assume an official one would actually look like. The head was very straightforward. I think it's similar to what many of us imagined, but I eventually fell into
Sí, es lo que decís, no transmite, ¿no? No transmite mucho Eternatus. Es como me. De hecho, es que no parece ni legendario, ¿verdad? El diseño. Diseño normal. Tampoco, si te dicen que es un Pokémon normal, tampoco pasa nada, ¿no? No parece un Pokémon legendario tochísimo.
very amphibian inspired. It's a salamander since they're heavily associated with both dragons and poison. But remember that this
Ah,
is
vale,
what
veis,
Eternatus
veis,
looks like.
vale, creo que
Its
este le va a quedar
proportions are
bien,
completely
Va a ser
different
como
since it's
desdentado.
legendary.
Va a ser un
I'm making a
dragoncito tipo
pseudo-legendary
desdentado,
here. That's why I made the eyes way more generic. It'll have claws that mix both reptile and amphibian. Since Eternatus has so many spikes, I added them on the spine. But that was me once again shrink-wrapping the design, so I took them out eventually. I thought the face was too simple and lacked any concept, so I made it way more dangerous looking. Originally, I was going to give it wings, but then decided to leave them as is and make them poisonous tendrils that it
Grande,
uses,
perros.
well, to poison. I eventually added all these spikes and details.
No está mal, no está mal,
Too much like
Druidi
an
con
actual dragon.
Paradox,
Very
¿cómo?
legendary and complicated. So by
Druidi
the
con
final
Paradox,
design, its head is bigger, it's way less spiky and slender, and of course, way lighter than Eternatus,
Oh,
whose dark violet colors
este
are
está
too
guapo,
intimidating for an average Pokemon. This is Lethalamin, the swallowing
Vale,
Pokemon
vale,
from
este me
Lethal
gusta,
and Salamander.
Este me gusta, Me gusta, Lo veo muy simple, se nota que no es un Pokémon, ¿no? Que es un fanart. Pero este sí está mejor que el de Dialga, Bastante mejor, la verdad. Veneno Dragón sería Lethalamin Multiscale de habilidad oculta, Y Poison Touch. No está mal este, Es que este es complicado, la verdad, hacerlo. Porque Eternatus es un bicho raro. Entonces, convertirlo a un Pokémon normal. Y muy buenas stats, 115 de ataque especial. Este está muy guapo.
Poison Dragon type. Lethalamin are not to be messed with. They whip around their poisonous tendrils in battle. One minor scratch from their spikes will inject enough poison.
Hombre, decís, me gusta más que el Eternatus original. Hombre, claro, es que el Eternatus original es una mierda, el diseño.
Toxins. Lethalamin can breathe in all the toxins back into its body.
Sí, está como muy plano, ¿verdad? Le faltan como algo de pinchos o así alrededor. Unos pinchos venenosos, a lo mejor.
One of these Pokemon being violently transported into our world, stripping it of its organs and increasing its power exponentially. It has the ability Poison Touch with the hidden ability Multiscale. I gave it a fun shiny too, very bright to warn others of how dangerous it is. As a pseudo-legendary, I imagine it has pre-evolutions.
Bien.
Remember that I plan on giving Eternatus slightly different lore in the
Eternatus
future.
bien.
So this isn't my final headcanon, just one for this video where I make a non-legendary out of it. I hope you like how I translated Dynamaxing into this Pokemon's
Molaría que le goteara veneno, es verdad. Estaría guapo
Si
eso,
te entra hambre en el trabajo.
Que le goteara veneno estaría muy guapo, Está comiendo gracias a mí este pavo,
Is a colossal lore-filled legendary.
Vale, Regigigas,
The creator and leader of
Ojo.
legendary titans,
Queda
Regigigas.
Regigigas
Dude
y
molded the Regis out
Necrozma.
of ice, rocks, and magma, and even moved the continents. But what if we took the same concept of a Pokemon that sculpts figures and applied it to something that you could find, anywhere around the Pokemon world? I want to make a puppeteer Pokemon, a wooden Pokemon that makes wooden figures that it moves.
Aquí voy a soltar un facto. Y pocos grupos de legendarios hay más queridos que los Regis, O sea, los Regis son hiperqueridísimos, ¿verdad? Por todo el mundo. Siempre hay alguno que te gusta más que otro. Y no son especialmente bonitos, pero tienen algo que son queridos, ¿verdad? O sea, no sé por qué, tío, pero todo el mundo quiere a los Regis.
Mustache. It's an entire mustache bush now. It has these leaves on its head to look like the hair of a balding man.
Oh, lo va a hacer
with
tipo
another
planta,
clump of
le está
leaves
poniendo
to look like
hojas.
hair and a beret. Its body is segmented like a wooden puppet. Finalizing the face shape, it's just a shorter version of Regigigas' face, but it also makes it look like it has a nose. The
Los
hands
cuatro
are simpler
originales.
versions of
Y Regieleki
Regigigas',
no.
refining
Regieleki es
it all and giving it
queridísimo, a mí
some
me
shrubbery
encanta.
on the feet. It's way smaller than Regigigas, so the individual
Aprendimos
leaves are
braille,
more
es
visible.
verdad.
The colors were tough to come up with since I wanted it to be white like Regigigas, but also look brown like wood. In the final design, I settled on white and gold wood. Check out Sculptimber, the puppeteer Pokemon, a grass normal Pokemon.
¿Cómo lo veis, chicos? No me gusta mucho tampoco. Bastante meh, sí. Bastante meh. Empezó muy fuerte con Arceus, pero este... basura. No habléis así, que lo hizo él. ¿Lo podéis hacer vosotros? No sé, le falta algo, tío. Lo veo como muy plano. Lo veo muy plano. Planta normal. Woodworker de habilidad, sin habilidad oculta. 110 de ataque físico.
Pokemon. It's a master.
Si es basura se dice, no es basura, no es basura. Lo saca Pokémon como forma Paradox y os la coméis. ¿Cómo voy a robar estos diseños para un short? Mencionando al chaval, obviamente.
To attack foes and take
Aunque bueno,
hits
tiene
from
1
it.
millón de
When it
suscriptores,
has
le da
no
un poco
puppets
igual, yo
left,
creo.
It battles with its flexible body. It is not the fastest, since its body consists of stiff wood, but its segmented limbs allow it to completely turn body parts and even extend them. It can attach fibers
que ir al
into other
gym,
Pokemon
es verdad.
and manipulate them like puppets as
Brazos
well.
palillo tiene.
Sculptimber is said to be a distant relative of Regigigas. It has a new signature ability called Woodworker, which gives priority
Carpintero.
to grass type
Le da
moves.
prioridad a los
This is
movimientos de
perfect
tipo
considering its
planta.
speed.
¡Qué
I wonder if
guapo!
Sculptimber would be more useful in battle than Regigigas, despite not being a legendary anymore. Its shiny is reminiscent of white birch in autumn, one of my favorite kinds of scenery. Honestly, this is the one I'm most proud of. While it looks a bit like a Regiwood,
Vale,
I have something
de
else in
tamaño
mind
está
for
bien.
that. In my opinion, it exemplifies the purpose of this.
Claro, pero vosotros sabéis lo difícil que es hacer un Pokémon nuevo que no se parezca a otros Pokémon hoy en día. Es casi imposible. ¿Cómo lo hacéis? Es muy difícil. O sea, cada vez es más difícil hacer un Pokémon que no se parezca a otro Pokémon.
dude that takes
Mirata Palworld.
weakened state. Like straight up mini Necrozma.
Vale, a ver Necrozma,
Less
que es el último.
complicated and more humanoid. Okay? You understand? Cool. Imagine Necrozma but not tortured. Just a prism guy with Necrozma aesthetics. Far less spikes and angles.
A ver Necrozma, que tiene mucho juego, la verdad. A mí Necrozma me gusta, A mí me gusta el diseño.
It's not an alien anymore, so its configuration is a bit more
Tipo
humanoid.
alien.
Every single complex shape is now more familiar. Its feet look like boots, its head looks like a hat, and its arms look like gauntlets.
A ver,
I'm
lo va a
taking
hacer en plan
bit of
chiquito,
cowboy
con
inspiration.
armadura.
Not that on the nose, though. I picture him as a wandering rogue. It's Necrozma's colors, but I decided to simplify the
Galet
reflective
flaco y
light so
cúbico.
that its chest is colorful. Say hi to
Necrozma
Prismini.
bebé.
The
¡Ojo!
Prism
Pues
Pokemon,
está
a
guapo,
psychic rock type.
Me recuerda al bicho siniestro de Paldea. Al... Larrick se llama. Este está guapo, Este está guapo, Este está muy guapo,